Karoline Leavitt changed the game just when everyone thought it was over, but this time it wasn't just about her. Her first lawsuit sent shockwaves through the world, revealing chaos behind the scenes and sparking a firestorm of backlash. Many people believed she had made her point, but nobody anticipated her returning even stronger, which is exactly what happened. Breaking news. The stakes are bigger than ever in the new lawsuit Karoline Leavitt brought against The View, Whoopi Goldberg. Joy Behar and the rest of the panel thought they had weathered the storm and that the controversy would gradually go away. However, they were completely mistaken because Karoline is back, and she's back with something much more powerful than before. For years, she had watched the media bury stories, twist narratives, and ruin reputations. She knew that this fight wasn't just about clearing her name, it was about justice. What many people don't know is that Karoline has a history with The View, one that goes beyond simply being a conservative commentator on their show. Her closest friend, a journalist, a whistleblower, or someone who dared to question the powerful, had been entangled in The View's web of media manipulation years prior. This person had once trusted the system, but The View had ensured their voice was silenced, destroying their reputation on national television. Karoline is requesting accountability. This time, not just damages. If The View believed they had witnessed the worst of Karoline Leavitt, they were in for a rude awakening. Her first lawsuit was already a bombshell, but this new legal action is even more explosive. What exactly is she accusing The View of? How are the hosts responding behind the scenes? Could this be the moment that finally brings the entire show down? ACC, per insiders, according to Karoline's second lawsuit, The View participated in workplace harassment, defamation, and, most damaging of all, systematic use of aid-driven media control to manipulate public opinion. Her legal team has discovered evidence that goes well beyond misleading tales and a bombshell revelation of leaked internal emails and secret documents. And this time, she is not just accusing The View of destroying her reputation. She is exposing a whole system intended to repress voices like hers. According to tech reports, ABC has been using automated algorithms and artificial intelligence to increase positive coverage of the viewpoint while suppressing negative news. Court documents allegedly contain damning evidence, including emails, texts, and whistleblower testimonies, demonstrating that ABC's media division used AI-powered sentiment analysis tools to downgrade articles and social media posts criticizing The View so they wouldn't appear on trending topics. Karoline claims that her lawsuit isn't just about what was broadcast, it's also about how her voice was purposefully removed from the digital sphere. By altering engagement metrics, pages spread misleading narratives, causing favorable articles about The View to go viral, while negative ones are ignored. Using automated moderation systems to mark conservative pundits' content as objectionable allows you to blacklist them from major platforms. But that's not all. A network of covert agreements between ABC executives and outside tech companies is exposed by the Karoline lawsuit, demonstrating that The View's reach extends well beyond its own program. Her legal team is now requesting multi-million-dollar damages, claiming that this is a well-planned, high-tech character assassination rather than merely a case of defamation. If Karoline prevails, the lawsuit threatens to financially harm the network in addition to demanding a public apology. The View may face a huge payout that could completely upend the show's future. ABC executives are reportedly in full-blown crisis mode, trying to figure out how to handle this new legal nightmare because it's not just a lawsuit, it's a direct attack on The View's credibility. The worst part is that they didn't see it coming. When the news of Karoline Leavitt's second lawsuit broke, the set of The View descended into complete chaos, and the host didn't even know it was coming. Fear A leaked behind-the-scenes audio recording from an internal ABC meeting was released by an anonymous hacker on Twitter minutes after the lawsuit made headlines. According to sources inside the studio, Goldberg was the first to hear the news and received a frantic call from an ABC executive just minutes before she was scheduled to arrive on set. She reportedly froze in shock and then stormed off to her dressing room, demanding to know seriously how this happened again. Joy Behar, on the other hand, was in total denial. She initially dismissed it, thinking it was just a desperate move by Karoline to make headlines. However, when she opened Twitter, she discovered that the leaked audio was already going viral and that news outlets had picked it up within minutes. Suddenly, Joy's smug confidence turned into quiet panic because this was more than just a lawsuit. It was a full-blown scandal that confirmed what conservatives had been accusing The View of for years. The real meltdown started during a pre-show meeting, where heated arguments broke out between the host, Sunny 18, and the producers, who allegedly confronted them, demanding to know why they hadn't been warned about the leak. Knowing exactly where this was going, Elisa Farah Griffin, who had already argued with her co-hosts about how they treated conservatives, remained eerily silent. In the meantime, Sarah Haynes continued to check her phone as though she was looking for a PR miracle to make this disappear. The real nightmare, which had nothing to do with Karoline's lawsuit, came when an anonymous hacker known as Ghost Signal posted a mysterious message on Twitter, implying that they had access to internal ABC emails that could demonstrate that The View had engaged in media manipulation far beyond simply attacking Karoline within minutes. The producers were frantically working behind the scenes. Emails were flying, phones were ringing, and legal advisors were racing to draft a response before the media could spin the lawsuit even further out of control. The subject line of an encrypted email sent by an unidentified sender to the producers. It was worse than they had anticipated, and it wasn't just about silencing Karoline. A screenshot of an email exchange between ABC executives detailing how they had worked behind the scenes with social media platforms to conceal unfavorable publicity about the perspective was included. The email suggested a concerted attempt to conceal a number of issues, including blacklisting vocal guests who didn't support the network's goals and concealing claims of internal harassment. The network had already spent weeks attempting to quell the fires from Karoline's initial lawsuit, and now, with another significant legal battle on the horizon, ABC executives were furious. Higher-ups were beginning to pose even more significant queries. Did the presenter overstep the mark and turn the viewpoint into a liability? The two most outspoken hosts on The View, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, were in full-blown crisis mode. But this time, it wasn't just about the lawsuit. Something else was going on that made Whoopi's blood boil even more, and they still didn't know what Karoline had planned for them next. After filming that day's episode, Whoopi reportedly slammed. Her dressing room door shut so forcefully that the staff in the hallway flinched. She refused to talk to anyone for almost an hour, pacing back and forth and making frantic calls to her legal team. When she did speak, her anger was evident once more. She blamed the producers of the show for not keeping her informed, blamed ABC's legal team for not shutting this down sooner, and most vehemently blamed Karoline Leavitt, and perhaps even more vehemently, a member of their own panel who had allegedly been in contact with Karoline's camp. For months, Elisa Farah Griffin had been at odds with her co-hosts over how the show treated conservative voices. However, there were now rumors that she was considering publicly endorsing Karoline and possibly leaving the show entirely for Whoopi. This was a betrayal beyond words. Does she know what she's doing? She reportedly yelled at one of the producers, "We gave her a seat at this table and this is how she repays us." She then went on a tirade, denouncing Karoline as dangerous, vindictive, and out to destroy the show. However, she was not just angry, she was terrified, because this wasn't just bad press. It was a legal disaster, and it was beginning to feel like The View was collapsing from the inside out. She initially dismissed it with a roll of her eyes and a dismissive palm, saying, "Oh, please, another lawsuit." The message was harsh. "We're pulling our ads effective immediately." For years, The View had thrived on controversy, consistently turning bad press into high ratings. This girl simply loves attention, but then she received a call, not from a producer, but from a legal advisor, a top executive at one of the show's biggest sponsors. A lawsuit was one thing, but losing business funds was quite another. Joy's confidence started to crack as she skimmed through her phone, watching emails flood in. More sponsors were reevaluating their partnerships, and some were even quietly pulling. Out before the scandal got worse, she started making frantic phone calls demanding answers from ABC executives. How long are we supposed to put up with this? She was overheard venting to producers. "She's making a career out of coming after us, and now we're the ones paying for it, literally." But when she learned that ABC's legal team wasn't confident about how to handle this case, that's when reality hit her. By the end of the day, Joy reportedly stormed out of the building telling staffers, "I swear, if we lose this one, I'm done between Whoopi's rage and Joy's panic." One thing was clear for the first time. They weren't just dealing with backlash, They were dealing with real consequences, and with the lawsuit already making headlines, it was only a matter of time before The View's biggest crisis yet went from internal panic to public humiliation the moment news of Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit hit the press. ABC's corporate offices were thrown into absolute chaos. Phone lines lit up emails, flooded inboxes, and executives were pulled from their meetings, called into an emergency strategy session that lasted well into the night. This wasn't just another controversy. This was a full-blown legal and corporate crisis, but it was about to get even worse just as ABC's top brass was trying to contain the fallout. A mysterious post appeared on Twitter from an anonymous hacker known only as Ghost Signal. They silenced guests. They rigged narratives they thought no one would notice. Guess what we did within minutes? The post went viral. Then a second post followed, this time with a blurred-out screenshot of what appeared to be an internal ABC email chain discussing the suppression of damaging stories in the past. And suddenly, the crisis wasn't just about Karoline anymore. ABC's lawyers knew they had a problem. With a hacker threatening to reveal even more internal emails, Karoline's complaint was strategic, systematic, and full of enough evidence to rock the network's entire foundation. It wasn't ambiguous or without merit. ABC was dealing with a digital ticking clock, which was much worse than a single lawsuit. As executives frantically sought solutions in the war room at ABC headquarters, a senior vice president allegedly banged his fist on the table and demanded answers. Since no one took her seriously, how in the world did we allow the legal team's response to reach this point? It's too late to disregard her damage control strategies, which were created right away. A generalization that minimizes the litigation. Step 2 instructions. At all costs, the host of The View should refrain from talking about it on air. Step 3 was to discreetly inquire with Karoline's team about the possibility of a private settlement, but there was a significant issue. When an ABC representative contacted Karoline's legal team, she refused to back down. The response was brief and harsh. Karoline has nothing to say to you. We'll see you in court. That's when the real panic began, since ABC executives were fully aware of what was about to happen. Greater public scrutiny, internal disclosures, and media attention than they had ever had before. It was no longer merely a lawsuit. It was now a battle for survival. The ABC was facing the possibility of losing total control of the story for the first time, and with Karoline refusing to back down, it was only a matter of time until this crisis escalated into a full-blown corporate nightmare. Within minutes, after the lawsuit was made public, the internet went viral. While conservative influencers wasted no time attacking ABC and The Viewpoint, something else was going on. Karoline Leavitt's name was all over the place, but this time it wasn't simply a political firestorm. It was something much greater. When media watchdogs and tech analysts dug deeper and revealed what UNC had covered, it rocked the industry. A string of online leaks showed that ABC had been using AI-powered content moderation tools to filter, suppress, and control how the public saw their scandals. The use of AAM by ABC to manipulate trending topics, bury negative coverage, and amplify positive spin is no longer limited to Karoline. Within hours, leaked internal emails detailing how ABC executives worked with social media platforms to downrank. Critical content and inflate engagement on damage control posts were shared on Reddit. According to a whistleblower, a former ABC digital strategy consultant, ABC had a dedicated team for suppressing negative press through automated algorithms. By midday, the lawsuit was not only trending, but had turned into a scandal of corporate censorship and media manipulation by nightfall. Independent journalists were starting their own investigations to find out just how deeply ABC's influence had gone, and liberal media scrambled to contain the fallout, calling the lawsuit a coordinated attack by right-wing operatives. The Curso had flagged certain conservative commentators to be shadow banned whenever they criticized the show. Internal reports revealed that negative engagement on The View's content was artificially reduced to maintain advertiser interest. CNN minimized it, calling the tech leaks unfounded conspiracy theories. The public wasn't buying into MSNBC's segments, accusing Karoline of using false information to undermine mainstream media. Instead, they were reading the leaked emails, analyzing the AI moderation reports, and watching media manipulation unfold in real time. The verdict showed that people were siding with Karoline, and the comment sections were vicious. ABC believed they could control the narrative, but now that the receipts are out, it's not just about The View. It's about how media companies manipulate what we see. I didn't care about The View before, but now that this scandal is bigger than them, and then came the memes. This time, independent investigators were tracking ABC's past censorship patterns, connecting dots between news stories that had mysteriously disappeared over the years. By the end of the week, it was no longer just about Karoline, it was about the integrity of digital media itself, and ABC was losing the battle. No amount of spin damage control or PR tricks could stop the storm. A photoshopped image of Whoopi Goldberg holding a sign warning lawsuit incoming showed Joy Behar making a fake laugh and captioning it Joy when she realizes AI can't save her. The show had endured years of controversy, firings, and waves of public outrage, but nothing had prepared them for what was happening now. ABC executives weren't just concerned about the lawsuit or the negative headlines. They were afraid of losing major sponsors inside the executive suites at ABC headquarters. The phones wouldn't stop ringing advertisements, the lifeblood of daytime television. This was because the internet had already chosen its side, and this time it wasn't with The View. A senior executive from one of the network's biggest sponsors, a business whose advertisements brought in millions of dollars every year, personally reached out to ABC's top brass with the message, "Fix this or we're done." This set off a chain reaction that sent executives into frantic meetings behind closed doors, with sources reporting shouting matches and intense confrontations as ABC leaders angrily demanded accountability from the hosts and producers. Inside ABC headquarters, a number of significant advertisers discreetly suspended their contracts and withdrew their ads until ABC demonstrated that they could manage the scam. Others publicly questioned whether their brand was safe in light of the show's growingly negative reputation. Senior management engaged in a heated argument over how much longer we can put up with this, with some executives publicly claiming that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Bear had now gone too far. These hosts had turned into a liability, defending their reputation. Panic was spreading, and there were whispers of a significant shakeup, losing the show itself. Although longtime viewers who had previously fervently supported Whoopi and Joy were now re-evaluating their allegiance, online forums and comment sections were overflowing with once loyal fans who acknowledged they could no longer support a show accused of systematic dishonesty and media manipulation. While Joy and Whoopi publicly dismissed the rumors as just another media cycle, their anxiety was evident in private, as staffers observed that Joy had abruptly become withdrawn and that Whoopi's behind-the-scenes outbursts had increased. At this point, it wasn't just about Karoline's lawsuit, it was about whether The View and even ABC itself could survive at all. The lawsuit sent shockwaves through the media landscape, and everyone was waiting to hear from Karoline Leavitt. Would she negotiate? Would she agree to a quiet settlement? Would she give ABC the chance to control the damage? The answer was a resounding no. Both of them knew deep down that the writing was on the wall. This wasn't just a temporary PR crisis, it was existential. Karoline Leavitt was the one person who put them in this situation. Karoline intensified the argument rather than backing down, because she had witnessed too many influential media personalities twist the facts, silence critics, and control stories without ever being held accountable. Now she was making them answerable and ready to deliver her most devastating blow. But at a press conference that same week, Karoline stood in front of the cameras, held up a document, and issued a challenge that nobody anticipated. ABC maintains that they have nothing to conceal, but if that's the case, I have a straightforward request. Please release all internal emails pertaining to this case so that the public can see how the ABC viewpoint operates behind closed doors. At that point, the ABC executives realized they were in a difficult situation. If they remained silent, it would appear as though they were concealing something. If they consented, it could cause everything to fall apart. Karoline's remark was more than simply a demand. It was a declaration of war, and the pressure increased over the course of hours. When Karoline announced that their legal team was now involved, a well-known nonprofit organization that promotes media transparency publicly supported her. The public deserves the truth, and if ABC refuses to release these documents voluntarily, we will fight to ensure that they are made public in court. The REA action was swift and explosive. While ABC was sliding leftist media, social media erupted with conservative critics who dubbed it the moment corporate media finally came to light. They have been controlling the narrative for years, and now the walls are closing in on them. Outlets hurried to minimize the circumstances. Karoline was charged by CNN of undermining journalistic integrity. The problem was that Karoline didn't need billionaires to prove her point. The leaked documents spoke for themselves, the court filings provided overwhelming evidence, and just when ABC thought things couldn't get any worse, a conservative news outlet released an explosive audio recording of a behind-the-scenes meeting at ABC headquarters. In the recording, an executive could be heard panicking over the fallout and admitting what they had always feared. "We should never have allowed this lawsuit to escalate because it could reveal more than just the viewpoint. If she moves forward, it could reveal how we handle these situations internally." This was a serious media situation. At her subsequent public appearance, Reckoning and Karoline weren't finished. She stared directly into the cameras and stated, "This lawsuit is about more than just me. It's about accountability, transparency, and subjecting the media to the same standards that they attempt to impose on everyone else." The audience erupted in applause, the internet blew up, and ABC had no answer because Karoline wasn't just suing them. She was putting their entire empire on trial. For the first time, they had no way out of this situation. With The View drowning in controversy, ABC executives had to decide whether to remain silent and let Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit dominate the headlines, or to fight back and try to regain control of the narrative. They decided to do the latter, which turned out to be one of their worst career decisions. The very next episode of The View opened with tense defensive energy instead of calmly addressing the controversy. "I just want to say something real quick," Whoopi began, her voice noticeably strained. "This whole thing is absurd. We've always been about open discussions and welcome all points of view." Joy Behar instantly stepped in, scoffing and leaning forward in her chair. "Oh, please, let's face it, this is simply a political ploy, because Karoline Leavitt and her supporters simply cannot tolerate strong women voicing their opinions. They file lawsuits and act like victims." The audience applauded, but something didn't feel right. Perhaps it was the awkward silences between their sentences, or perhaps Joy's voice cracking slightly, revealing underlying worry, or perhaps it was the fact that the public had finally realized their act before the crucial mistake. Within minutes after that assertion, Whoopi continued with a cocky sneer. "And let me remind everyone that we have never censored anybody, silenced guests, or manipulated narratives. That's just not who we are." Twitter users swiftly revived. A viral video clip of Whoopi violently leaving the set, effectively shutting down a guest mid-debate, and social media burst not with support, but with a deluge of receipts that refuted Whoopi's claim. Videos of Joy violently interrupting conservative guests and preventing them from completing their remarks were posted by YouTubers. Political analysts pointed to stolen emails that unequivocally demonstrated that ABC had purposefully barred some conservative pundits from participating in the program. The internet exposed their deception, and it quickly spread. Within hours, millions of people watched another viral video called "The View Lies Exposed in Real Time," which methodically disproved every inconsistency between their words and deeds, rather than giving them back control. Whoopi and Joy's attempt to deny Karoline's claims had backfired spectacularly. Not only had they failed, but by the evening, even impartial observers had publicly acknowledged that they had exposed their hypocrisy and dishonesty. As a result, they not only lost today's PR battle, but they also lost all credibility, giving Karoline the greatest victory of her career. At first, ABC remained silent in the hopes that the backlash would subside, but when social media continued to play clips of Whoopi and Joy's disastrous attempt to discredit Karoline, the network The Ice. Only option available to executives was to intervene behind closed doors. There was a noticeable tension at ABC. Executives were incensed over Whoopi and Joy's actions, calling them reckless and unacceptable, according to internal emails stolen by anonymous insiders. One senior executive's reply was blunt. "They've completely lost control. We need immediate damage control, or we risk permanent brand damage." At first, executives told Whoopi and Joy to tread to keep quiet and not stir up the topic any further, but they doubled down, making matters worse in the face of strong pressure from sponsors, viewers, and shareholders. In a bold and unprecedented move, ABC announced that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar would be temporarily removed from the show with immediate effect. The statement was well crafted but brutally clear. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar's recent remarks do not reflect the standards of ABC News, and both hosts will be temporarily stepping away from the show while we consider our next course of action. The quick and devastating fallout. In a desperate attempt to prevent more harm, ABC swiftly took the contentious episode down from all streaming services and scrubbed the problematic segment from the official YouTube channel. However, ironically, ABC's swift action only served to reinforce Karoline's point. For years, Whoopi and Joy had dominated political debates, interrupting guests, dismissing opposing viewpoints, and silencing conservative voices. They thought their popularity and influence would always shield them from consequences, but this time they were mistaken and suspended their two most powerful hosts. In a stunning twist of irony, ABC acknowledged something they had previously denied, that Karoline's accusations were true, that there was actual misconduct, that accountability was finally inevitable, and that the very women who had attempted to silence Karoline were now silenced as well, unable to control the narrative, spin the truth, or simply talk their way out of it. Joy's attempt to retaliate had totally failed, and ABC's extreme measures had done what no statement could ever do. They had actually demonstrated Karoline's entire point in real time. Behind closed doors, what had begun as a brazen attempt to brush off Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit as simply another political ploy had quickly escalated into an unprecedented catastrophe. The problem was rapidly becoming worse, and key advertisers, the show's financial backbone, were now acting. ABC executives were convening emergency meetings in a desperate attempt to find a way out of the crisis their own host had caused. The network had always accepted the controversies caused by Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar because they believed that controversy drove ratings. But now that controversy was becoming a liability financially and reputationally, executives were starting to question the very foundation of their strategy. Panic quickly turned into outright fear, and rumors quickly spread through the halls of ABC headquarters, claiming that drastic measures were being discussed openly for the first time ever. If the scandal wasn't resolved quickly, several corporate sponsors, including one of ABC's largest partners, had privately informed the network that they were considering terminating their advertising contracts entirely. An internal memo from ABC's chief marketing officer clearly expressing that the viewpoint has officially turned into a problem and that either this ends immediately or the show's future needs to be carefully considered. At first, Whoopi and Joy dismissed the leaks, believing their fame and seniority made them untouchable. However, as reality set in, their attitude drastically changed. Staff saw Joy visibly shaken after meetings with executives, and Whoopi's renownedly tough demeanor became more defensive and unpredictable. The truth was that their influence was waning quickly, and longtime viewers who had once stood firmly behind Whoopi and Joy were leaving the show disillusioned by revelations of deliberate misinformation, targeted harassment, and systematic censorship of opposing viewpoints. Conservative audiences, energized by Karoline's fight, actively campaigned for the cancellation of the show, calling it the perfect example of mainstream media hypocrisy finally facing accountability. Then came the tipping point, when a major conservative media outlet released even more internal ABC emails, demonstrating beyond a reasonable doubt that executives had long known about and covertly approved of the host's misconduct. At that point, executives realized they had to make the difficult decision to continue protecting their star host and watch their network burn or cut ties, hoping it wasn't already too late. ABC's top brass publicly acknowledged that maintaining Whoopi and Joy meant accepting ongoing controversies and risking their corporate reputation. It was obvious to everyone watching that Karoline Leavitt had lost control of the narrative and that the hosts were in full panic mode behind closed doors after her spectacular backfire, which sent ABC into an existential crisis for the first time ever. Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg were no longer there. Audiences understood they were scared, unsure, and for the first time truly afraid of ABC's confident, rebellious characters. For years, network executives had relied on controversy to drive ratings, convinced that negative headlines were just part of the game. But Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit had unearthed something far more alarming: a systematic effort to manipulate the media, censor dissent through artificial intelligence, and deliberately suppress opposing viewpoints. Now, the network found itself cornered, unable to deny or downplay the allegations any longer. As corporate sponsors began pulling their funding, financial losses escalated. Once loyal advertisers who had proudly supported the show were now quietly distancing themselves. Ratings nosedived, public trust disintegrated, and internal chaos spiraled out of control. Yet ABC's greatest fear wasn't just financial ruin, it was losing control of the narrative entirely. For the first time, internal discussions at ABC broached the unthinkable, removing Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar from the air, or even canceling the show altogether. Industry insiders whispered that The View, once considered untouchable, had become a liability so toxic that no advertiser wanted to be associated with it. Meanwhile, Karoline's momentum only grew stronger. She gained widespread support from influential legal nonprofits, conservative voices, and countless viewers demanding media transparency. What started as a personal lawsuit had transformed into a national reckoning for the industry. Social media buzzed with relentless chatter. Right-wing influencers celebrated the battle as a victory. Memes flooded the internet predicting the show's downfall, and even liberal media figures openly questioned whether ABC had finally gone too far. For a brief moment, the show's ratings spiked, but not for the reasons ABC had hoped. Audiences weren't tuning in out of loyalty. They were drawn in like spectators watching a building burn, captivated by the spectacle rather than genuine support. Publicly, ABC insisted everything was under control. Privately, they knew better. The sense of invincibility was gone. Staffers noticed the tension. Executives who once carried themselves with casual confidence now flinched at every phone notification, their dread palpable. Then, just as ABC scrambled for damage control, another devastating blow landed. A prominent legal nonprofit, known for holding powerful media organizations accountable, publicly pledged full support for Karoline, vowing to fund and assist her legal battle. With this backing, she now had the resources and credibility to drag ABC's darkest secrets into the light, no matter how long or painful the fight became. ABC had weathered scandals before, but never had it faced such intense public scrutiny. Their reputation was crumbling, sponsors were fleeing, and loyal viewers were walking away. They were trapped. As executives watched the chaos unfold, the question was no longer whether Karoline had a case, it was whether The View could survive the firestorm she had ignited. Would ABC sacrifice Whoopi and Joy to salvage the show? Would they attempt another desperate act of damage control? Or had Karoline's relentless pursuit of truth finally cracked the foundation of a media empire that once believed it was untouchable? One thing was certain: ABC was no longer in control of its own fate. That power now rested entirely in Karoline Leavitt's hands.